Well, one day me and Mary, we were driving. We were in the Jeep. We were going. Actually, it was on the Lucky Four Gold Mine Trail. It's around the back of this mountain here. And we came across a guy. He was parked. He had his knapsack out, a big pack. He had a bunch of stuff on the ground. And this is not many people go on this little path. So I stopped and I asked him. I said, "Hey, how you doing?" And not bad. I said, "Where you headed?" He said, "Oh, I'm heading up to the Lucky Four." I said, "Oh yeah." I said, "You ever been there before?" He said, "No." He says, "It's my first time." He says, "But I'm a hiker." He says, "I train and I do this and that." And I said, "Oh yeah." And I looked down at his pack. His pack had all this stuff. It was all army kind of rations and buckets and stuff. And I said, "You plan on taking that?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Well," I said, "I'm going to tell you, I've done the hike a couple times. I don't think you'll be able to take all that with you. It's the hike's pretty hard." He said, "Oh," he says, "It's not my first rodeo." He was telling me, he's done a lot of hiking. So basically, I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, there's lots of bear and cougar up there." And he points towards his vehicle, and his vehicle's got this sticker on it that says something about bear course or something. And he said, "Well, what I'm going to do," he says, "I'm going to, this is an exploration hike." He says, "I'm going up," and he says, "I'm coming back in a couple weeks." He says, "I'm going to take a couple Army guys up there, a bunch of them actually." He says, "And I'm going to train them on bear awareness and, it's a tough hike, whatever." That's what he wanted to do. I said, "Oh, great." So I said, "How long are you going for?" He says, "Oh, I'm going up for 3 days." So I says, "Well, I said, do me a favor." I said, "When you come out," I said, "stop by where I live." I said, "and just check in." I said, "That's a tough hike." He said he would, and this and that. Anyway, the next day, 3 o'clock, me and Mary pull into our little camp, and there he is. He's sitting on this log, and he's writing me a letter. And I said, "Hey, how you doing?" He says, "Not bad." And I said, "What happened?" He says, "Well, oh, I forgot to say." So I told him, when you hike in, I said, there's some switchbacks. I said, the best thing to do is don't do the switchbacks. I say, there's a creek, a river coming down the mountain. I said, if you take the creek, knocks about two hours off the hike. And I said, the switchback trail's really hard. It's hard to find. He said, okay. Anyway, here's the story. He's at my house writing a note. Says, "Hey, how you doing?" He says, "Not bad." He says, "Well, here's the deal." He said he made it to the switchbacks, and he couldn't find the switchbacks, so he tried going up the creek, and he said it was pretty tough, so he decided to camp the night. I guess he said he put his food 100 meters away. Anyway, the bear got his food, and he couldn't hike up the creek. He said it was the boulders, this, that, water. I don't know. Anyway, I said, "Oh yeah," and in the next breath, I said, "That's where Mary goes and picks her berries, where you were camping." Anyway, that's the story. Have a good day.